Hello, everybody. Good evening. I am Cheree. It is your favorite lender here. I am here with a very special guest. He is the House Hack King. He is a realtor in Northern Virginia, and he is here to talk about house hacking and how you are able to purchase a home and house hack and how to do it successfully. So, as you all are coming in, please give us a thumbs up. If you're listening to the replay, give us a thumbs up so that way our various social media platforms can know that you like this content that you're getting. So, Mike, welcome to the show tonight.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you even got into real estate.
Well, I am currently an agent, full-time agent and investor. I started my
Mhm.
journey several years ago. I had a W-2 job that I was working. I got interested in real estate investing. I started listening to a lot of Bigger Pockets, and that really, piqued my interest. And I kind of just made a decision. I was like, I'm going to own a rental property by the end of the year. It was like
Mm.
probably summertime when I made that. So I started like researching markets, making a plan. And then sure enough, in December, I closed on my first rental and I
Yeah.
enjoyed doing the investor thing. So then after another, maybe a couple years, I was like, I just want to do this full time. I want to become an
Mhm.
agent. I want to continue to invest and help other
Mhm.
people invest. So that was kind of
Mm.
my my reason for becoming an agent. Like that was my motivation, was to help other investors, and take them through that journey. And it's been a lot of fun. When I work with first time investors, I get to like vicariously do the first one again,
Mhm.
through them. And that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I've been a full-time agent for almost 3 years now. And yeah, that's kind of just like how I got on this path.
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, I love the fact that you said in your head, like, I'm gonna do this, and you did it. You kind of that power of intention. And the truth is, when you say it and you really mean it, then all of a sudden your mind starts framing itself with regards to, well, how could I do that? If I wanted to succeed in that, how would that happen? And next thing you know, the property shows up and the funding shows up and things like that. So I really like that. Um, so you, for the most part, work with a lot of first-time home buyers with regards to house hacking, or who do you find is most benefited from house hacking? And also
Yeah,
let
that
people
is.
know what house hacking is, because we don't want to assume that
Yeah,
they know.
yeah, no. In the most basic terms, house hacking is monetizing your primary residence.
Mhm,
There's a lot of ways to do that. There are more traditional ways that you'll hear a lot about if you do listen to podcasts and stuff like that. They'll say, buy a multi-family property and live in one and rent out the other units. Well, I operate in Northern Virginia. We don't really have many multifamilies, so we have to get a little
mhm,
more creative than that. And it is just monetizing your house in one way, shape, or form. I'll give you kind of some extreme examples. We have
mhm,
You can literally just buy a house that has a garage. I know someone who's doing this, and he's renting out his garage to someone with a landscaping company. I think he's got a couple mowers in there. He's got some tools. He's renting out his garage. That's not something
mhm,
that people commonly think about, but it can be as
mhm,
simple as that. On the other end, what's more common is just buying a home, a basement, a walkout basement with its own entrance, and just renting that area out. Basically creating a top and bottom duplex, and it's anything in between. It's renting out a room, having roommates. That all kind of falls under the umbrella of house hack. How do I make my primary residence bring some sort of income? You're house hacking.
mhm. Yeah. So, first of all, I like the guy who rents out his garage to the landscaping company, because so many of us now these days, with the housing prices the way that they are, you kind of have to be um, creative with regards to how you do that. So I like that. I also definitely a loan for a young lady who rents out rooms in her primary residence. And, she's successfully doing that, And I had an uncle once, I still have an uncle, but he doesn't have this property anymore where he did the basement. It was in Fairfax and he had the basement entrance and that was a, second unit. Talk to us a little bit about somebody who says, okay, yes, I have to house hack. I want to house hack. I want to buy a house, but for whatever reason, I can't do it all on my own. I want to house hack. If somebody says, for example, they want to get a basement unit or a second, are there restrictions that you would need to have with regards to a kitchen, bathrooms, things like that? Like, what is somebody looking for in a property if they want a house hack?
Yeah, that's a great question. I go into it with something that I have in mind, but really it is as comfortable as the owner and the potential tenant are willing to be. You can,
Mm,
I mean, you can kind of do whatever you would like, but like if you want to have the wide, cast the widest net for potential tenants, most people that are willing to be there, a separate entrance is like number one. Most people don't want the coming in through the front door and like,
mhm,
going down the steps and doing all that. So a separate entrance, a full bathroom is the next one. If they have to come upstairs to take a shower, that's no good. So a full bath, separate entrance, and then next would be
mhm,
ideally a kitchenette, if not that, at least a wet bar. You can put. Most people don't have ovens in the base, so you're talking about a microwave or a hot plate. I've seen like toaster ovens, things like, appliances that are not
mhm.
that expensive. You can plug in, put on a countertop. So as long as there's like a wet bar with a countertop, if not, depending on, it's not that expensive to put a wet bar downstairs, So like I
Okay.
don't ever exclude properties just because they don't have a wet bar.
Mhm.
It depends on the client. If they have like literally zero
Yeah.
cash to put into it, it's like, well, maybe we have to pass on this. But in most cases, if it checks like all of their boxes, it's in a great area, it's a great value, and it's just missing a sink downstairs, we can put that in. We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are
Yeah.
those are the
And
big
so
ones.
let's, yeah. So from a lending point of view, if people are concerned about adding wet bars and other items downstairs, then we have a renovation loan, and we have actually a couple of different renovation loans that are available for people where we wrap that into your mortgage payment as well. So you are able to get money in order to help with the build out and the facilitation of that second unit. Now, obviously, they can't totally make we call it build a whole new unit for you. Well, that's not true. There's an accessory dwelling unit loan that's available. Um, but if you already have the separate interests and things like that, and it's just like, hey, I need to add a full bath in here, or I need to add, I need to change out the toilet or something like that. We don't want people to think that they cannot get a loan, and they have to pass on that property because you can. So I do want to say hello to Miss Franny Pants, who is here. Dark and Lovely is saying hello to you, Mike, and the BWMM Live gang. And Lena is saying this is great. So thank you so much for being here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Um, so was there anything else that people should think about as they are considering looking at properties and purchasing their first property with regards to house hacking?
There are, just before I touch on that though, I want to
Mhm,
reiterate what you said about these loan products,
mhm,
because it's worth mentioning again. You're talking about the ability to turn something that otherwise maybe it's great in so many ways, but it actually does not work for you for a house hack. You're now
mhm,
financing the ability to turn that into a great house hack property. And
mhm.
I mean, that's so powerful. Like, that is
Yeah,
incredible. Um,
yeah.
I can't tell you how many times that I see like an amazing property. It only has a half bath downstairs, and
Mhm.
the client, they don't have like the means to turn that into a full bath right now. And that was why I said like the wet bar is usually not too bad, but if there's
Mhm.
no, if there's no bathroom downstairs, like that's getting pricier, putting a full bath
Yeah.
downstairs when there isn't one. So being able to use a loan product like that and now get it under contract and finance it
Mhm.
and do that while you live in the home is it's incredible. And people should definitely look into that, especially right now. Like
Sure.
there's not that much inventory, so you have to make
Mhm.
deals. You can't just
Yes.
find them. Like you're gonna have to make them. At
Yes.
least in our market.
Yeah, in a lot of markets. I'm talking to people all over the country, and there's a lot of competition for houses and for housing. I was speaking with somebody who is a friend of our network here who is in Atlanta area, and he's even saying, he's putting offers on properties and he's getting outbid because there's just so many people in the market. So, Brian's Tax Services is here. You should be doing your taxes. You should be you should be doing your clients' taxes. But I'm glad
That
you're hanging
time.
out with us tonight. Yes, the 29s are due tomorrow. So I know, look, I used to live that life. So I'm just laughing. And Kat Flan is here as well saying hello. Okay, so going to my question about the properties themselves, what are some of the things that people should watch out for in the positive and the negative and with regards to if someone wants to house hack?
Yes. Step one is asking yourself the type of house hacking you want to do, the strategy,
Hmm.
because that will
Hmm.
really inform what you need in the house and what you can't have, basically, like what is not
Hmm.
going to work with the
Hmm.
house. So if you're willing to do the roommate route, it's like, hey, let's go and look for a property that has as many bedrooms as
Hmm.
possible if you're willing to
Hmm.
do that. And because every bedroom is like, it's just like another little revenue stream.
Hmm.
A lot of people, most commonly, I say people do want just the basement and they want some separation. Although once they get a little bit older, a lot of times in their, maybe it's their second or third house, but they're still house hacking. They want a little
Hmm.
bit of separation. A lot of my first time buyers who are younger, they're like, hey, I just had roommates.
Frat
I'm used to
house.
roommates.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
hey, let's bring in as much revenue as possible. So
Hmm.
depending on the strategy you want, is really kind of what you're going to be looking for.
Hmm.
If you want roommates, go with a lot of rooms. If you want the complete separation, then one, you want something that either A, has that door in between already,
Hmm.
or can be
Hmm.
easily installed. Because like there's a lot of times where there's no door down to the basement, but depending on the configuration of the house, it's like we could throw up a tiny bit of drywall, a frame, and you're good. There's other
Right.
cases where it's a funky design where it's like, I don't know how we would seal this off.
Hmm.
So just make sure that it's doable. Similar with the wet bar, like if there's a full bath downstairs and there's like a big, a wall that it backs to and the plumbing is in there or it's already plumbed, it's like, man, we're just popping this in. Like that's easy,
Yes.
cheap. You know, you need to know it's like, hey, there's not a pipe in sight down here. Like we're gonna have to run 40 feet. Like it's gonna be that's expensive.
That's when it gets
So
pricier. Yeah.
yeah, you want to know those things going into it and when you're looking for it. Also know your target. Do you
Mhm.
want to furnish it and do midterm rentals? Maybe go close to a tier one, trauma center, or one or two trauma hospital that they have a
You
ton of
might have to
traveling
explain
nurses.
what that means. What's first,
Like
so
like
let's slow down. What is a midterm rental, first of all? Because a lot of people may not know in my audience what that means.
That's right. A midterm rental is basically renting anything 30 or more days. If it's less
Hmm.
than that, it's legally a short-term rental, and there are a lot of restrictions around that depending on the county you're in, your HOA, condo. Like in our area, almost no condo allows that.
Yeah.
So it's anything from like 30 days up till, we would say like 6 months even. The
Hmm.
typical stay that I see is 30, 60, or 90. Those are the most
Hmm.
typical rentals. In area, we have a lot of traveling nurses, a lot of government,
Hmm.
a lot of corporations that are renting these out for people to come in. We're a hub for the government in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
So understanding your market and knowing the type of clients that you will be getting, you should craft your property around that. Like if it's going to be traveling professionals, put a desk in there. If it's a
Mhm.
midterm, you want to furnish it. Um, so location is huge with midterms. If you decide you do want to go midterm, and um, you can get, I mean, I've seen 2x, even 3x the long-term rents for midterm rentals. Like it's
Yes.
substantially more, significantly more. I
Yes.
have one client who's living in his basement. He has a basement and a 3-bed upstairs. He's living in the basement with the
Mhm.
kitchenette. He's renting out the 3 bedrooms upstairs by the room, midterm rentals, and he's covering his mortgage every month. That is unheard of in our area. He's living for free, in
Mhm.
Alexandria. Like it's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. So that's a strategy. Short
Mhm.
term, if it's allowed, and if it's a good location, like a desirable area, midterm, and then long term, you don't typically need to furnish it. Um, but yeah, location is a huge one. Like, and
Mm.
you want to know who your target demo is for the tenants before even having that discussion.
Right, right. That's a strategy. So, two things. Number one, my mother, when we owned our house in Fairfax, she did house hacking as well, like at one point. And um, when you walked in the door, it wasn't a separate entrance, but when you walked in the door, you either able to go upstairs to her area or downstairs. And the person who was renting downstairs, they basically had the entire downstairs area for themselves. So, even though it was the same entrance, it still felt like you weren't on top of each other. Um, the other one is you had mentioned the frat houses, for example. I knew a woman who she was a mother of a son. Her son graduated from college, and she and her husband got the son a house, 4 bedrooms in Herndon, I think it was. And three of the friends lived with him, and then he got married a few years later, and they still had the house, they had the asset, and he moved out and moved with his bride someplace else and still held on to the property. So you are right that it does depend on your age. Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? Would you want somebody living right next to you, or do you want a little bit of space, etc.? So absolutely. um, are there any don'ts with regards to house hacking? Some things that you've seen where you're like, it's a no-go. Um,
Well, you you can't. I would say that I wouldn't give any hard rules of like don't do this, but
mhm,
the mistakes I have seen people make, and it's kind of case by case, person by person, is don't do some soul searching and don't just get into what do the numbers look like. I'll
mhm,
give you an example. I know someone who in Centerville has a crash pad for flight attendants.
mhm,
I think it's 3 bedrooms. Maybe it's 4, but in every bedroom there's 2 bunk beds. There's 4 beds,
mhm.
and they rent out by the bed.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to live like that.
Mhm,
Now, if I just looked at the top line revenue and thought this is how I can maximize my asset, then maybe I would fool myself into thinking I would be okay. You
mhm.
don't want to put yourself in a position where you're unhappy or uncomfortable, because you always remember you need to live there too.
Yeah.
This is not just a rental property. It's not just an investment. It's also your home.
Mhm.
So there's people that think, oh, if I rent by the room, I'll make more money. And then they're upset that they have roommates. And it's like, well, maybe you just rent out the basement and you have
Mhm.
separation, and you don't put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
That's one of the bigger mistakes, honestly. It's just
Mm.
people who just think of it as like this is just an investment. They don't consider their
Mhm.
own like well-being or happiness.
Yeah.
Um, and that's always number one.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are you going to be okay with? Another one would be make sure that your strategy is legal in your jurisdiction.
Mhm.
um, there are places that do not allow short-term rentals, and I've
Yeah.
seen people try to get away with it. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Like you're rolling the dice if you're
Yeah.
breaking like a county ordinance. um, but I mean, those are really the big ones. I would also say you if you've never been a landlord before and you don't have a strategy for like, with like the frat house where they have like the
Mm,
friends, basically, if you're gonna have a stranger move in, you give yourself permission to be choosy.
please.
That
Yes.
that's another one, because I've seen people like
Yes.
accept the first tenant and it ends up not working like the way that they
Hmm.
envisioned. You know, and it's unfortunate that usually that happens to some of the best people because
Hmm.
they assume everyone's like them, I think, and they
And
just
they're
like
not.
they're very trusting, they're very and like they end up in a weird situation, and it's like, man, I could have told you a mile away not to rent to that guy,
Hmm.
um
Well,
so yeah,
there are some people who are professional tenants. They
oh,
know the landlord laws better than you do. And, they will hide things during the vetting process. So maybe it's even worthwhile to hire a property manager who can vet people for you before, they even get to you. Like, no, you go and apply to that person first. And if that person does a full vetting and they say, okay, we think this is a possibility, then, and that way you don't have to worry about letting people down,
yeah.
you, yeah.
No, that's a great idea. And and
Yeah.
and I tell my house hack clients that when they're interviewing tenants to literally interview them
Mhm.
face to face and trust your gut, your instincts.
Mhm.
Like they've it's we've evolved over a long time to have instincts,
Mhm.
and if you get a weird sense about someone or something feels
Mhm.
off, just pass on them. Like
Mhm.
it's as simple as that. And maybe you can't even verbalize it, you can't put your
Mhm.
finger on it, but it's fine. For me, like owning rentals, I would never do an in-person interview. That can only bring me bad things. Like I don't want to see my tenants because you know what I mean? If you
Yeah.
reject them, it can just get in a weird area. So it's like, I
Yeah.
would never do that. But in your own house, you're allowed to reject someone for any reason. So if you get a weird vibe, if you don't
You
feel
can?
comfortable,
Okay, because I was going to ask you that. So we have a lot of ladies in one of my groups, and you know, women don't want to live with men, for example.
absolutely.
So they don't. So if it's their own personal residence, they can say, because there are laws where you cannot discriminate against people because of their sex or their religion or things like that. So, but you can. I don't want to say discriminate, but you can reject somebody if it's in your own home.
100%. And check your local laws, but in Virginia, that's absolutely the case. And I
That's
think it's
great.
probably the case anywhere. I
Yeah.
think it's the case anywhere, but in Virginia, it definitely is. And yeah, I have like half of my clients are women, and I
Mhm.
tell them, like, if you don't feel comfortable renting, like having a guy live below you, or even if it's a roommate situation,
Mhm.
just say no, no guys allowed,
Yeah.
and that's perfectly fine. Whereas, and that's why I said, like, for me, if I'm just renting out my property, I can't say no guys allowed,
Uh-huh.
so like, I don't even want to see them, because like, then if you ever get rejected, it's like, oh, it's because of XYZ, whatever.
Yeah.
But in their case, like, it's your personal home. You're not subject to fair housing laws. You
Mhm.
can literally, so like, you don't even have that concern in your head. You can just say, hey, I don't feel comfortable living with a guy. Perfectly reasonable, and a lot of people
Mhm.
feel that way, by the way, and it's
Yeah.
like, that's fine. Yeah.
Well, I would. I mean, just because men are stronger than women, and I wouldn't know if he would overpower me, So, yeah. So, I would well, you know what? That's actually a really great thing. So, I learned something tonight. I do wanna let people know that if it is your own primary residence, I do have a lender that will fund an accessory dwelling unit, called ADU, and Mike is smiling about this. So, basically, if you have ever seen, the situation where you have the main house, could be like a four-bedroom house, and then in the backyard there is a little smaller house, and it has, the kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom there, but it's a little smaller house. Those things can be built if you have property. In some places, like I heard New York, for example, they're giving grants. In California, they're giving grants, but everywhere else, if you need a loan for something like that, come and see me, because I do have a lender that does those ADU loans. It does have to be for a primary residence. So I know I work with a lot of investors. You cannot get the money for an investment property, but you can get it for a primary residence. And for some of you, maybe you live there for a year, 2 years, and then you leave, and but you would still have the ADU as well as the main house that you're able to rent out, and that could still be a part of your rental portfolio. So just something for people to think about with regards to the loans that are available to you. Um, and I also mentioned the renovation loans as well that's available to people. So the one thing sorry, the last thing I do want to say about house hacking with regards to loans is uh, even though you may be considering the strategy of house hacking, you still need to be able to afford the entire house on your own. Um, so as a lender, unfortunately, if you say, I'm going to rent out the rest of the rooms of my house, I cannot use that rental income when I am calculating your income in order to determine if you qualify for the loan or not. So just be cautious and careful about that as well. I am, if you get to a point where you want to buy a 3 or 4 unit property, then we're able to include the rents from those other units. But it has to be, a triplex or a fourplex. Even if it's a duplex, you have to be able to afford the entire mortgage on your own. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew that as well. If you have questions, obviously contact me, simplifunded.com. So, Mike, what did I not ask you that you think that people should know?
Really quick, just to piggyback off the loan thing
The
again.
lending thing? Okay.
Yeah, just the you do have to qualify on your own. Don't look at that as a hindrance. It's a good
Mhm,
thing. It kind of
mhm,
it ensures that you cannot become house poor if you're house hacking in a way, because if you can afford it on your own, say something crazy happens, the tenant moves out, you learn, you know what, this is just not for me. I
mhm,
don't want a house hack. Now you can still pay, you can still pay your mortgage. You're
mhm,
not tied to a situation where you're living in a home that you must rent out just to afford it. So that's really for your protection. And it also means that if you're renting it out, that revenue you're bringing in is really like, you can
mhm.
save it, you can pay
Extra.
down the mortgage, but it's
Mhm.
extra. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not, it's going right out to the mortgage because that's what it's earmarked for. That's all it can do. It's extra, it's savings. I know a lot of people that they throw all of it towards their mortgage and they turn around, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to pay off like a 30-year mortgage in like 13 years. Like
Mhm.
it's incredible. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of like
And then
the,
you wouldn't really need to house hack after that. Then you could just,
yeah,
live by yourself after that. So, yeah.
yeah, it's an awesome thing.
Mhm,
But I guess we talked about the location. I'm really big on, I'll reiterate something I already said. It's just
mhm,
understand yourself, think about it really hard and be like, what strategy would I be happy to be living in? Would I be
mhm,
comfortable to be living in? Because that truly is the biggest, what I would call a mistake, if you want to call it that, is people they rent out in situations that they end up being unhappy with.
mhm.
And you just don't want to put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
So give yourself as much privacy as you want, as much as you need. um and then anything beyond that, rent out. I know a lot of people who are doing the roommate thing that are loving it, having a blast with it. But if that isn't you, don't talk yourself into that it is you,
Yeah.
just because it's like good from a revenue standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will say that my dream is a Golden Girls house. So I guess I'll have to do it as a primary residence, but I want to build it from the ground up. I like have it in my head how I want it to be with, 4 bedrooms. Two of them have their own bathrooms, two of them share a bathroom. And we have the famous yellow kitchen with us sharing cheesecake. So if anybody wants to be a Golden Girl with me, in the next 15 years, not right now, then that's going to be an option for all of us as
I love
well.
it.
But
You
yeah,
have a vivid vision right there.
I
You're
do.
yeah, a vivid vision is achievable always.
Yes, yes, it is. Just like you started off with saying that your vision was to have your first investment property, and you did by the end of the year. So I thought that was great.
I'm a
Um,
big believer in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, well, look, buying a house is not an impossible thing. You basically talk to someone like Mike, and Mike is going to tell us how we can get in touch with him. Talk to someone like Mike, kind of get your strategy together, really know yourself. If you are okay with somebody living in the room next to you, or if you kind of want some separation and they've got to have their own separate entrance, or all of that, thinking about that. But I do think that house hacking is a great way for people, especially buying your first home, to be able to do that. And once you get a roommate or somebody living with you, having some breathing room so that you can save, or you can put that money towards additional payments on the house, things like that. So, Mike, how can people get in touch with you if they want to hire you as a realtor, or, pick your brain with regards to house hacking even more?
Well, I am on Instagram and TikTok at House Hack King. My email is mike.weber@thecasagroup.com. And I'm always happy to talk real estate investing, especially house hacking. That is kind of like become my specialty. But investing in general, I'm a long-term buy and hold investor myself.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm always happy to talk.
That's fantastic. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We said 30 minutes and we pretty much ended on the dot. So, if again, you need money for any of your real estate deals, purchasing a house for yourself, or as an investment property, contact me at simplyfunded.com. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mike, again for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I see you here, Christina. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Brian's Tax. Good to see you, ladies. I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.